7. The third question. God's opinion matters the most. In Caesarea of Philippi that day, Jesus asked his followers, "Who do people say that I am? And who do you say that I am?" But there is a third question that doesn't appear in the sacred texts of the gospel. Nonetheless, it is worthy of our consideration. It is a question that may also help us to understand and answer the Jesus question. The third question is this: who does Jesus say that you are? Jesus says you are a child of God. There are a few things more precious in this world than the love of a mindful father. Selfishness and human weakness rob so many people of this experience, but when we see the beauty of true fatherhood, it is unmistakably attractive. A good father takes care of his children. He does everything he can to give his children what they need to live, learn, grow, and thrive. He doesn't give them everything they ask for. He weighs each request, and sometimes he gives them things they don't need, even before they ask, just to see them filled with joy. A good father always wants what is best for his child. He sacrifices in 1,000 ways for the sake of his child. Jesus says you are a child of God. He came to remind us of the love God the Father has for each and every one of us. The image of God that Jesus encouraged us to cling to was that of God as our Father. See Matthew chapter 6, verse 9. I have always believed that God loves me. I'm not sure how or why. Perhaps it is because I always knew that my own father loved me. He wanted what was best for me. I never doubted that. We disagreed at times, but never once did I think he was acting out of selfishness. He cared for me, protected me, and made incredible sacrifices so that I could have opportunities he never had. He comforted me in my failures and rejoiced with me in my successes. More than anything, my father delighted in just being with me. There was a time when I pretended I didn't believe in God. My grandmother had died, and we were at our house after the funeral. I was sitting on the stairs of the front porch, and my dad came out and sat down next to me. I said to him in an angry, tear-strained voice, "I don't believe in God anymore." My dad didn't overreact. He responded calmly, "That's okay. God still believes in you." Many years later, my being a father myself has changed me in so many ways and taken my spirituality to a whole new level. When I put my children to bed at night, we have a routine made up of various rituals unique to each child. Walter and I talk about his day, watch one of the many videos I have of my children on my phone, then I tell them a story, and finally we have prayer time. Isabel and I talk about her day, have story time and prayer time, and then we have a slow dance while I sing to her. Harry howls with laughter when I slap the book shut at the end of the story, but then he wants to read the same book again and again. Finally, he says goodnight to Jesus and gives the picture of Jesus in his room a big, sloppy kiss. Every night I tell them, no matter what happens, Daddy always loves you, and if you have a problem, you just come to Daddy, and Daddy will help you fix it. The love I have for my own children has proven to me beyond doubt that God loves me. Where does this love that I have for my children come from? Nothing comes from nothing. You see, if I can love my children the way I do, and I am wounded, imperfect, and broken, imagine how much God the Father loves us. Yes, there are some horrible fathers in this world, but there are also some amazing fathers, and we know a great father when we see one. Think of the best father you know. Now multiply everything good about that father by infinity, and you will still have barely a glimpse of God the Father. Who does Jesus say you are? He says you are a child of God. Jesus says you are infinitely valuable. Jesus believes that you are infinitely valuable. Anytime you don't believe that, you are living in a state of deception, disconnected from the deepest, truest reality. I often wonder how we would live our lives differently if we really understood our true value. Over and over, throughout the scriptures, Jesus tries to affirm our value. You are the light of the world. Matthew chapter 5, verse 14. You are the salt of the earth. Matthew chapter 5, verse 13. You are my brothers and sisters. Matthew chapter 12, verse 50. You are so valuable that God has counted and keeps track of every hair on your head. Luke chapter 12, verse 7. So often the world wants to belittle us and put us down. The world can be so impersonal, reducing us to numbers or defining us by our functions. But Jesus offers a radically different view. He says you are infinitely valuable. In great contrast to the depersonalization of the world, Jesus affirms God's personal interest in you, even to the numbering of the hairs on your head. Jesus wants to raise you up, and more than anything else, he affirms that your value is not derived from what you do, but from whom you are, a child of God. Jesus says you are free. Jesus values freedom above all else. God values freedom so much that he gives you the freedom to reject him. Without freedom, there is no love, because we can only ever love to the extent that we are free. The world treats us like orphans and slaves, but Jesus reminds us that we are children of God and that he came to set us free. Jesus sets us free from selfishness and sin, so we can become all God created us to be, the very best version of ourselves. Jesus says you are a child of God, you are infinitely valuable, and you are free. And Jesus' opinion matters. Who do people say that Jesus is? Who do you say that Jesus is? Who does Jesus say that you are? These are 3 questions worthy of our attention. Jesus wants us to be very clear about who he is, because being clear about who he is allows us to become clear about who we are. Our identity is inextricably tied to Jesus. The more we discover who Jesus truly is, the more we will place him at the center of our lives. It is the only sane response to knowing him. The more we place Jesus at the center of our lives, the more life begins to make sense. It is simply impossible to make sense of life without the clarity that comes from placing Jesus at the center. I've tried this foolishness, and I have failed. You can try it if you wish, but you will fail too. Point to ponder: no matter what happens, God loves you. Verse to live: am I now seeking human approval or God's approval? Or am I trying to please people? If I were still pleasing people, I would not be a servant of Christ. Galatians chapter 1, verse 10. Question to consider: do you value yourself anywhere near as much as Jesus values you? Prayer: Jesus, thank you for revealing yourself to me. Thank you for all you have done for me. Thank you for loving me even more than I love myself.